Let me ask you, did your teen's FND start after a concussion or maybe second or the third time the concussion happened? If so, you're not alone. Today I'm going to explain how a minor concussion can turn into functional neurological disorder, short for FND, and especially and more importantly, how to reverse that condition. And if your teen has anxiety, avoids movement, or feels stuck, then stay with me because I have a solution for you. So let's dive in. Hi, my name is Dr. Lee. I'm a pediatric health psychologist and the founder of Teen FND Academy, which is a group online coaching program to help teens with FND and their parents like you guys to resolve the condition. So let me start with the science of a concussion. Technically, a concussion is a type of traumatic brain injury, and the majority of the mild traumatic brain injury, because of TBI, the traumatic brain injury, has a level, mild, moderate, and severe. So the most of the mild, it's not that it's not important, but mild traumatic brain injury is a concussion. And so concussion is basically that you would get a hit to head or close enough. So then basically the brain gets sort of like a jolted, like there's a fruit in a jelly. It's like, kind of thing. And then it's a micro injury within the brain. So that's why the scan, CT scan, MRI, that kind of thing doesn't show. It's not a bleeding or it's a bruise, but it is an injury. So what happens after concussion? A concussion basically shocks the nervous system. And essentially then what that means is the brain enters into this high alert mode. So symptoms like headaches, dizziness, fatigue are normal at first, and seeing doubles and, things like that. Sleep difficulties, mood change, body ache, you name it. Anything and everything you can think of is covered under concussion. And generally speaking, the brain usually heals within weeks, especially for teens. Teens take a little bit more time to resolve concussion compared to adults. Statistically, based on the literature, at least the ones I checked the last time, for adult concussion, it takes about 7 to 10 days to heal, one quote. And then teens or child and adolescents, it can take up to like 3 to 4 weeks. So it takes a little bit of time. But generally, you get better within weeks, but not always. So the turning point of why some teens, because not every teen who has concussion develops FND. So why there are some teens, maybe like your teen, who sort of like develops FND. So here's the deal. If the brain stays in this fear and high alert, hypervigilant mode, then it starts misfiring signals. So instead of healing, the brain and then the body starts creating this misfiring maladaptive pathways. And this is where your child might start showing this movement sensory issues, non-epileptic seizures, and drop attack and things like that. So it seems and sounds like concussion caused or the triggered the FND symptoms. Again, when it comes to FND, it is a biopsychosocial phenomenon. So it's not just one thing that is causing the problem. I'm just narrowing down to a concussion for today's video. However, that is how a concussion and FND can be connected. So it's a little bit premature and then kind of overly simplistic to say the concussion is the only reason why, it's that concussion that caused the FND. However, it is pretty reasonable to say the concussion was one of the triggers that sort of like hit the threshold to start the FND symptoms. Now, sometimes other triggers might be invisible. So again, it really depends on your case, but concussion can certainly trigger an episode or onset of FND symptoms. Now, the 3 common denominators of concussion-triggered FNDs are these things. Number 1, anxiety and hypervigilance. So it's not so much about your teen has had a struggle with anxiety. It's more about your teen is consistently scanning for danger. Is something wrong with me? Oh, I'm feeling this way. Oh my gosh, what does that mean? That kind of thing. Meaning, worrying about symptoms makes them feel worse, okay? And this is where a lot of teens will turn and say, wait, does that mean that it's all in my head? I can't believe you, stuff like that. I will say, hold that thought. Not necessarily that's what I'm saying. However, your body is basically having this natural reactions to needing to be constantly hypervigilant because you care about your body and therefore your brain cares about your body as well, right? So that's why worrying about symptoms or what's happening to your body, that kind of thing actually, is a natural response, doesn't necessarily help to get better from FND or concussive symptoms for that matter. The second part is catastrophic thinking. And again, it's not so much about it's all in your head. What I can tell you is brain is in your head and then brain does a lot of things. Okay, but that's about it. So thinking like, what if I never get better? It kind of creates more brain and body miscommunication, because body is kind of like a servant, to your brain. So whatever that your brain tells the body to do, it kind of does. And then vice versa too. And sometimes there is a miscommunication. But when you're thinking about this, what if I never get better? Oh my God, this is not good, that kind of thing. Then the miscommunication starts to happen more often, which is not really helpful. So that's why small symptoms for many teens feel like a giant, this permanent thing. Oh my gosh, chronic means permanent. I'm gonna have to live with it, that kind of thing. The third one is fear avoidance behavior. Once again, all of these things are very natural reactions that anyone is going to experience. Like I was one of those, right? But going back to fear avoidance behaviors, is basically avoiding normal movement out of fear. Like if I do this, maybe things are going to get worse. Like if I do that and if I walk around or get active, then my headache gets worse, that kind of thing. Then what happens is as a result, the brain sort of forgets how to move properly. Then the lack of movement reinforces the symptoms. So as a typical concussion recovery protocol, it used to be like 20 years ago, you just stay in bed in a dark room like a cocoon and don't do anything until you get better. Then you come out of the cocoon. Well, guess what? Since then, it's the opposite. Actually, if you do that cocoon therapy, it's going to take a longer time than those other folks who are sort of like starting to move lightly but gradually increasing the activity level. These teens get better. That also includes adults too. So they get better and faster than people who stayed in this cocoon thing. So since then, the national guidance is, okay, let's get moving, right? So again, but if you don't do that because you're fearful and avoiding a behavior of getting things worse or flare-ups and things like that, flare-ups are expected, but that's not the sign that it's getting worse. But we don't know that, right? That's why the lack of movement happens as a result, and then it unfortunately reinforces the symptoms. So it's kind of like it's a broken record. Your brain keeps playing the wrong track, and then we need to reset that. So how can we reset that? Number one, concussion shocks the nervous system, right? So guess what? Nervous system, especially autonomic nervous system regulation strategies. And again, FND is not because or only because of the autonomic nervous system glitch, but that's one of big ones that teens can do relatively quickly to re-regulate that because their brain's still developing. So teach the brain, basically, you're safe, your body can move, your body can improve, your body can heal, stuff like that. And your teen can say that while also saying, yeah, I say that just so that I can say it, but I don't believe it. Then you're kind of canceling out each other. So again, start focusing on the autonomic nervous system regulation strategies while having this self-talk of not like just be positive, kind of thing, but you're safe, I'm good, my body can move and my body can heal, stuff like that. Number two, going back to being active, gradual exposure to movement is really helpful. Move little by little, even if symptoms happen at first. Again, flare-ups are expected, both from concussion and FND standpoint, because your brain is basically putting out the fight. No, I don't want to change, right? So change is bad, but it's okay because you're safe, your body is safe. And then the other thing related to that is start really focusing on functional activities over symptom tracking. The more symptoms you're tracking, yes, I am better on this way. It's almost like you're having this clipboard and check marks. Yes, better, better, better. Oh, not better, not better, not better. Then you're really focusing on the symptom, which is not really helpful. Therefore, start focusing on functional activities, meaning like activities that you can do little by little with baby steps. And then the third thing that you can do to reverse and retrain the brain is shifting really the focus from fear to confidence. So what does it look like? You've got to celebrate every single small wins because that is going to help you and your team to keep moving forward. Like, I walked 5 more steps today. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I've got 20,000 more steps to go, but I want to focus on 5 steps I can take. So this is where I see a lot of parents, yeah, we're seeing the progress, but we still have these huge problems. I'm like, yeah, it takes time. So what are you focusing on? Yes, I'm not saying like don't focus on the problems that you need to solve like forever, but equally in my program, Teen FND Academy, I talk about 5-to-1 ratio. So 5 positive or grateful things to 1 critical or negative feedback. So if you find yourself thinking, wow, it's better, but we've got all these problems, well then which one Are you putting the 5 and 1, right? Are you focusing on the 5 grateful things over one thing? So if you're not doing that, flip that. So stop reinforcing the identity of being sick. And this is the problem, and this is not good, this is bad, all of these things, because your body and brain are literally listening to what you're saying, either directly or indirectly. So again, in my Teen FND Academy, I talk about the parents, your internal experience, like how you're feeling inside of you, is a lot more contagious than any virus out there on the planet. So even if you're thinking, and even if you tell me, no, I'm not telling my child I am worried, I'm not telling my child I am tracking all these things, it doesn't matter, because your child is going to get the vibe, So that's that. Just like any virus, you don't need to cough in front of your child for your child to get a cold or something like that, right? So it's kind of similar thing. So really work on that. You yourself as a parent can also work on the nervous system regulation strategies and graduate exposure to movement. Slowly getting back to your life, how it was. And also slowly start to focus on the confidence and the small wins. Celebrate that. I'm also curious, did your teen's FND start after a concussion? Tell me in the comments. I want to know. And if you and your teen are ready, so sick of being sick with FND and ready to take actionable steps to retrain a brain to be done with FND, apply to my program and then see if we are a good fit. The link is down below. Well, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video.